I know you guys must have been seeing this trending Ankara Cape top that has been going over most social media platforms lately. Well, the good news is this tutorial is about how to make that top, and I'm going to be using an Ankara fabric for that. All thanks to Kemi for the fabric. Kemi, if you're watching this, I want to say a big thank you to you for the fabric and also for taking out time to record a huge part of this tutorial with me. Thank you so much. If you're new here, my name is Ayomide, and on this channel I post DIY sewing tutorials. You would also find pattern drafting tutorials. If you haven't seen most of my videos, well, you are missing some things. So once you're done watching this, I would advise you go through my channel and then watch some videos, and you would be happy you saw my videos. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, now is the time to subscribe. What are you waiting for? And also click on the notification bell so you can become notified for more videos. Without talking too much, let us just move to the tutorial already. The first thing I did, guys, was to fold my fabric into two. Afterwards, I would go ahead and fold it again into four. So what this means is that I am going to be cutting both the front and the back together. The next thing I did was to mark ½ inch away from the topmost part of my pattern paper. Please ignore the second line, and then I'm going to be taking the length of this gown from the first line, and I'm using 44 inches. So that is the length of the gown. I'm just going ahead to mark 44 inches across to determine the length of the gown. Once I'm through with that, I'll go ahead and mark half of the shoulder measurement minus 2 inches. So half of the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 8.5. Taking out 2 inches is 6.5. So I'll just go ahead and mark 6.5 right on the fabric, and then I'm going to be adding 1 inch for seam allowance. That gives me a total of 7.5. So from that seam allowance mark, I would be coming down by 1 inch for the shoulder slat. For the neck width, I am choosing 3.5 inches for the neck width, and for the neck depth for the front, I am going also with 3.5 inches for the neck depth for the front and 1 inch for the back. You don't want it to be too deep at the back. I would also go over to my neck width and mark 3.5 inches downwards. This is also another way to draw your round neckline in the absence of an armhole ruler. So I just decided to draw my neckline this way. I will just go ahead and create a curve at the end of the square that I have drawn. The square serves as a guide actually. So I'm going over to draw in the neckline for both the front and the back. Then I'm going to be measuring what I have there, which is 7.5, and I'm going to be placing the measurements across. This is because I need a straight line. The cape gown is a straight line. The only measurement you need is your shoulder measurement, because it runs through right from your shoulder all the way down. So this means you could even use 1 yard of fabric for this, depending on how wide you are at the shoulder. So the next thing I did was to connect my neck point to the shoulder slant, that 1 inch I came by over there. Afterwards, I'm going to be marking ½ inch at the shoulder slant so that I can be able to join both the front and the back together. So I'm just going ahead to connect it with this fine fancy ruler. Okay guys, so once I'm through with that, the next thing I did was to cut it out. This is quite simple and very pretty. So I'm just going ahead to cut out. I'm cutting through the length first, and I'm also cutting through the back neckline. This is very important. Remember, we are cutting both the back and the front at the same time. So I cut through the back neckline first. Then to cut the front, I'm going to be bringing out the back. It's going to be inside. I'll bring it out and then align my fabric together and also cut out the front neckline. This is to ensure that I don't cut the same neckline for both the front and the back. Honestly, that would be a disaster. So I'm just going over to cut it out that way. Once I'm through with that, the next thing I did was to cut 4 strips of fabric for the belt, and the strips are about 30 inches long and also 3 inches wide. The length of the strips is totally dependent on you, but I think 30 inches for me was quite okay. And to turn over the strips, I will just be taking ½ inch away on both sides. Don't worry, when it is time to sew, I'm going to be putting us through how I turn over the strips. There are so many ways you can do it actually. So now let's move to the sewing machine. On the sewing machine now, we know the drill now. You have to place right sides against right sides and then sew along the shoulder slant. This dress is quite very easy to make. You can make it in 30 minutes depending on your speed. I don't even think I spent up to an hour making this, honestly speaking, right from cutting to sewing. So I'm just going over to sew in by my ½ inch seam allowance on both ends, on both of my shoulder. So guys, I'm done sewing along the shoulder. The next thing is to hem it by the side, and I'm going to be piping it. You could add a style or design to this. You could add pleats, you could add gathers, but I'm just going over to pipe it. And to do that, I would fold it in by ½ inch first and then fold it in again. I'm going to be securing it with a pin first so as to put it in place. Afterwards, I'm going to be running a stitch right through it. I'm going to be sewing it all over the fabric. So what this means is that the stitch would be running right from the front to the back, and I did this for both sides of the cape dress. Okay guys, I'm done stitching along the sides for both the left and the right, and I also went ahead to hem it along the hem. Is that correct? Hem along the hem? But I just hope you understand what I'm saying. I stitch it along the end of the dress. Yeah, I think that is way much better. So the next thing that I did was to finish off the neckline, and I used a commercially prepared bias. You could cut your fabric in bias, but for this dress I didn't want to stress myself much, so I just used a commercially prepared bias. So what I did was to open up my bias strip, and I turned my fabric to the right side because I don't want my bias to show on my fabric. I turn it to the right side and then place a part of the bias strip on it. I'm just going over to pin it to secure it in place. Afterwards, then I went ahead to sew it in all around my neckline. So I've gone ahead to sew it in all around the neckline. To properly finish off with the bias, I would just be turning the entire bias strip inside. So that was why I sew it on the right side of my fabric first, so that by the time I'm securing the bias entirely, it is going to be on the inside. It's not going to be showing on the outside. You could use this for a design if you want, but for this I just want to use it to finish off the neckline. So I'm just going over to pin it in place to make it very easy for me to sew, and then I'm going to be going over to my sewing machine to run a stitch all around the neckline. So guys, I'm done running a stitch all around the neckline, and this is what I have. It looks neatly finished and the neckline is properly well fit, is not standing anyhow. For the strip, remember I said I cut out 4. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 right over here. So to finish it off, I'm just going to be taking about ½ an inch on both sides of my strip. I would fold in ½ inch here and then fold in ½ inch on the other side also. So once I'm done folding it in, I would also go ahead to place it on top of each other and then top stitch right on it. You could also fold your strips into 2 and sew it in and bring it out. In this way, your stitch would be hidden, but I just want to do this for 4 of my strips. So guys, I'm done stitching and I have them 1, 2, 3, 4. The next thing is to fix it to the dress. So for you to know where to fix it to the dress, I'm going over to mark my waist measurement. My waist measurement is 15 inches. So I'm going over to mark 15 inches on the wrong side of my fabric. I marked it on the wrong side of the fabric and not on the right side. The next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be grabbing one of the belts that I made. I'm going to be grabbing one end of the belt. I didn't finish off this part, so I'm going to be placing it. I would fold it in by ½ inch first and then place it along the seam line
Afterwards, I'm going to be turning it over. This is to ensure that that raw edge that I did not finish is properly secured, and by this way I would also top stitch on the raw end of my fabric. I'm also doing this for the other side too. Fold it in by ½ inch, place it along the hem, and then go ahead and sew. Alright guys, this is the outcome of the cape dress. Very simple and easy to make. If you find this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. And until my next video guys, have a great day.